After sitting all night on the living room floor next to our dying dog, I finally crawled to bed by 8 in the morning. That's when I heard her voice in the kitchen, hissing angrily into the phone. "He's as pathetic as some mongrel. Will beg for crumbs if all you do is raise your voice. I wish he'd just disappear." Her sister laughed. "So just kick him out. He's not even a man." I held back my anger, got up and drove our son to school, pretending nothing had happened. Yesterday she stood at my door, crying and pounding on it. I didn't see it coming. Not at first. It started as just another exhausting night, the kind I'd grown used to. I was curled up on the cold, hardwood floor next to Baxter, our old, tired dog. He was barely eating, his breathing slow and ragged. I stayed with him, whispering soft words, trying to coax him into drinking some water. I'd always been the one who took care of him. Melissa wandered in and out a few times, each time glancing over without much interest. "I'm too tired for this," she muttered at one point, disappearing upstairs around 1 a.m., leaving me alone with Baxter. I wasn't surprised. This was normal. To her, Baxter was my problem, even though we'd gotten him together. I'd stopped arguing about that a long time ago. Fighting about what should have been a shared responsibility just felt pointless. At some point, I must have dozed off, but it was that kind of restless half-sleep where you feel every ache, every cold draft. I heard the fridge hum, the floor creak, and faint footsteps above. I checked my phone. 7:52 a.m. Dragging myself up, I stepped over Baxter, who just gave me a tired look, the kind that said, "I'm done. Let me rest." I didn't blame him. I felt the same. I wanted nothing more than a real bed for just an hour before I had to get our son, Noah, ready for school. But as I climbed the stairs, I heard Melissa's voice. It wasn't a normal tone, it was sharp, fast, and whispered. The voice she reserved for her sister, Ashley. "He's so pathetic," Melissa was saying, her voice a low hiss. "Honestly, sometimes I wish he'd just disappear." I froze. Was I hearing this right? Ashley's voice came next, loud and clear over speakerphone. "Why do you even keep him around? He's not even a man." I stood there, halfway up the stairs, feeling like I'd just been punched. I wasn't even angry at first, just numb. My mind was trying to make sense of it, but the more I thought, the more it hurt. This wasn't some heated fight or drunken outburst. This was a casual, everyday conversation, a morning chat for them. Finally, I forced myself to keep walking. I stepped into the kitchen, and Melissa's jaw snapped shut. Her phone gripped so tight I thought she might break it. She didn't look at me, just stared down at the counter, her face pale. I didn't say a word. What was the point? I grabbed my keys from the table. "I'm taking Noah to school." "He's going to be late," she mumbled, still not meeting my eyes. "I don't care," I muttered, my voice flat. Upstairs, I woke Noah. He was grumpy, but I helped him get dressed, told him we'd grab breakfast on the way. We hit the drive-thru, and I forced myself to smile, to make small talk. I asked about his school project, tried to laugh at his jokes. But my hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. After I dropped him off, I just drove. I didn't know where I was going, just away. My mind was a mess, a storm of confusion and shame. Was I overreacting? Was this really what they thought of me? Somehow, I ended up at a rundown coffee shop I hadn't been to in years. I ordered the cheapest coffee, the kind that tasted like burnt cardboard, and just sat there, staring at the faded wallpaper. My phone buzzed with notifications, old messages from Melissa and Ashley. I scrolled through them, saw all the little jokes I used to laugh off. Comments about me being too nice, too soft, not ambitious enough. Things I'd always shrugged off as teasing. But they weren't jokes. They never were. Melissa had changed after Ashley moved back into town. Before that, she was still demanding, but there was a balance. After Ashley came around, everything became a competition. Who had the best phone? Who went on the best vacation? Whose kid was the smartest? Suddenly, I was the one who was always falling short. I stayed there, sipping the awful coffee, replaying their words in my head until they felt like a chant. Pathetic. Not even a man. Eventually, I dragged myself back home. The house was quiet except for the slow, steady breathing of Baxter, still curled up on his spot on the floor. Melissa was on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. "Are you still sulking?" she muttered without even looking up. "Are you serious right now?" I shot back, feeling something snap inside me. She looked up, eyes narrowing. "Oh, please. I was just venting. Ashley gets me." "Venting?" I shook my head. I heard everything, every word. Her expression shifted, shock, then a flicker of fear, and finally defiance. "God, you're so sensitive. Can't take a joke." "A joke?" My voice was shaking now. "Saying I'm pathetic? Wishing I'd disappear? That's a joke." "Whatever." She stood up, brushing past me like I wasn't even there. "I don't have time for this." And that's when it hit me. She didn't care. She really didn't care. I didn't think. I just moved. I grabbed a bag, started stuffing it with clothes, my laptop, whatever I could grab. Melissa watched me, a mix of disbelief and anger. "What are you doing? Are you seriously running away?" "I'm done," I said, shoving a charger into the bag. "I'm done being the joke." "You're overreacting," she snapped, her voice rising. "You're going to abandon Noah and Baxter?" "I'm leaving you," I shot back. "Not them. I'll be back for Noah later." She tried to block the door, her hand on my chest, but I pushed her arm away, not hard, but enough to make it clear I was serious. I stepped out, slammed the door behind me, and got into my car. My phone buzzed almost immediately. Melissa's messages were coming in, all caps, blaming me, calling me a coward. I muted her. I texted my brother. "I need a place to crash." "Come over," he replied. No questions, no judgment. I didn't look back at the house. Didn't look at the messages. Just drove. But even as I pulled into my brother's driveway, even as he handed me a beer and told me to relax, the words were still there, burning in my mind. Pathetic. Not even a man. I wasn't going to forget that. The first night at my brother's place felt like a fog. I crashed on his worn-out couch, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything. My phone kept buzzing, notifications lighting up the screen. Melissa's messages flooded in, a mix of rage, blame, and desperate apologies. I didn't read them. I just muted her. "You did the right thing," my brother said, passing me a cold beer. I took it, but I didn't taste it. My mind was too busy replaying everything I'd heard. Her voice, so cold, so dismissive. Pathetic. Not even a man. It echoed in my head like a curse. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, sitting there on the couch, scrolling her phone, acting like none of it mattered. Like I didn't matter. By morning I was exhausted, but I knew I couldn't avoid her forever. I went back to the house, trying to keep things normal for Noah. He was still asleep when I got there. Melissa was in the kitchen, sipping coffee, her eyes glued to her phone. "So, you're back," she muttered without even looking at me. "I'm here for Noah," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. I didn't want to fight, but I also wasn't going to pretend everything was fine. I got Noah ready for school, helped him with his shoes, and told him we'd get breakfast on the way. I tried to smile, tried to act like I wasn't falling apart. "Can I get pancakes?" he asked, rubbing his sleepy eyes. Of course, I smiled, my voice a little too cheerful. He didn't notice, but Melissa did. I saw the way she watched me, arms crossed, her expression hard. After I dropped Noah off, I didn't go back to my brother's. Instead, I drove to the bank. I needed to take control of something, anything. I set up a new account in my name, moved my direct deposit there. I left enough in the joint account for groceries, but not enough for Melissa's endless shopping sprees. 2 days later, she noticed. The messages came fast, a flood of anger. "Did you move the money? Are you trying to starve me?" "You have your own income," I replied calmly. "Use it." Her response was immediate, her anger practically vibrating through the text. "You're punishing me for a joke. Grow up." "A joke? Calling me pathetic? Wishing I'd disappear? That's a joke to you?" She didn't answer that. Instead, she called a full-blown shouting match. I stayed quiet for most of it, letting her vent. But when she accused me of abandoning the family, something in me snapped. Abandoning? I'm done being disrespected. I'm done being your punching bag. I hung up, my hands shaking. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I was right. I had been her punching bag for too long. I started making changes. I canceled every subscription she used that was tied to my card, her gym, her wellness boxes, her streaming services. I called the phone company and took her off the family plan. She'd have to get her own now. The next morning, I got a text from a random number. "My phone isn't working." "Get your own plan," I replied. Her anger was explosive. She called me selfish, childish, accused me of ruining her life. I just ignored it. Every insult she hurled felt like another weight lifting off my shoulders. I wasn't done being a father, though. I called Noah's school, made sure I was the primary contact for him. Explained that things were tense at home and I wanted to make sure he was okay. Melissa found out and blew up again. "You're trying to steal my son." "I'm making sure he's okay," I replied. "Because you're too busy pretending everything is fine." Her voice broke then, but I didn't let myself feel bad. I'd spent too long feeling bad. I was finally doing something right. Melissa didn't take it well. But I wasn't surprised. The more I stood my ground, the more desperate she became. It started with guilt trips, messages about how I was ruining the family, how I was setting a bad example for Noah. When that didn't work, she tried anger, bombarding me with insults. And when anger failed, she shifted to playing the victim. "I can't believe you're doing this to me," she texted one morning. "You're abandoning us." But I knew better. I wasn't abandoning anyone. I was just done being treated like an afterthought. Then she brought her sister Ashley into it. It didn't take long before I started getting messages from her too. "Real men don't run away," Ashley wrote. "You're just proving how weak you are." "Real sisters don't trash their family behind their backs," I replied. And then I blocked her. Melissa wasn't done, though. She tried using mutual friends, spinning her side of the story. I started getting texts from people I hadn't talked to in months, all telling me how sorry they were for Melissa, how I should just come home and fix things. I didn't bother defending myself. "You don't know the full story," I'd say. "And honestly, it's not your problem." But while she was busy turning me into the villain in her little drama, I focused on Noah. I made sure I was there for him, picked him up from school, helped with his homework. I told him that no matter what happened between his mom and me, I would always be his dad. Melissa, on the other hand, started falling apart. The bills piled up and she missed a rent payment. The landlord called me asking if I was still living there. "I paid my half," I told him. "You'll need to talk to her." She found out I told him and went ballistic. More angry texts, more accusations. "You're trying to destroy me." "I'm making sure I'm not the one who gets destroyed," I replied. And I meant it. For once, I was choosing myself. But it didn't stop. Melissa showed up at my brother's place one night, banging on the door. Her voice was loud enough to wake the neighbors. "Open the door. I know you're in there." My brother looked at me, eyebrows raised. "Want me to call the cops?" "Not yet," I sighed. "Maybe she'll calm down." But she didn't. She kept yelling, accusing me of abandoning Noah, of being a coward, of being nothing without her. Finally, my brother stepped outside. "Leave, or I'm calling the police," he told her, calm but firm. She threw something, I think it was her phone, at my car, then stormed off. I watched her taillights disappear and felt nothing. Just exhaustion. The next day, I made another decision. I contacted Noah's school, made sure they knew I was the primary contact. I wasn't going to let Melissa's chaos affect him. I wasn't trying to take him away from her, but I needed to make sure he was safe. Melissa found out and blew up again. "You're stealing my son." "No. I'm protecting him from your mess." Every time she tried to manipulate me, I stood my ground. Every insult, every attempt to guilt trip me, I just ignored. For the first time, I was saying no. And she didn't know how to handle it. Her social media turned into a theater of drama. Cryptic posts about betrayal, about being surrounded by fake people. She tried to get her friends to message me, but I blocked them too. I was done playing the bad guy in her story. But the best part? As her life unraveled, mine started to get better. I found a small apartment near Noah's school, somewhere stable where he could have his own space. I was finally taking control. Melissa's desperation hit a new level. I thought she would eventually get tired and let things settle, but I was wrong. Instead, she escalated. One afternoon, I got a call from Noah's school. They told me Melissa had shown up unexpectedly, trying to take him out early. She was upset, raising her voice, making a scene in the front office. "Please keep Noah there," I told them. "I'll be there soon." When I arrived, Noah was waiting in the office, his backpack on his shoulders, a confused look in his eyes. I gave him a reassuring smile, told him everything was fine, and walked him to the car. My phone was blowing up with messages from Melissa. "You're turning Noah against me. You're ruining my life." I didn't respond. I just drove Noah to my new place, a small but clean apartment with his own room. He seemed quieter than usual, but I didn't push him. We had dinner, watched a movie, and he finally smiled again. But Melissa wasn't done. That evening, she showed up outside, banging on the door. Her voice was wild, a mix of rage and desperation. "Open up. You can't keep him from me." I didn't answer. I peeked through the window and saw her makeup smeared, hair a mess, tears streaming down her face. She didn't look like the woman I once loved. She looked like a stranger. My neighbor peeked out, gave me a questioning look. I just shook my head and he went back inside. Melissa kept banging, shouting that I'd stolen her son, that I'd ruined her life. But I didn't open the door. I didn't engage. Eventually, she gave up, storming back to her car. I watched her sit there for a long time, her head on the steering wheel. Finally, she drove off. But that wasn't the end. The next day, the landlord of our old place called me. Melissa hadn't paid the rent again. She tried to get him to call me, hoping I'd cover it. I'm not responsible for her bills, I told him firmly. I've paid my share. Melissa's texts became a whirlwind of emotions, blame, self-pity, threats, then pleas. She even tried calling my brother, my parents, anyone she thought could pressure me into going back. But I had warned them all and they knew better than to get involved. Then, in a final twist, she tried to take it legal. I got a message, you're abandoning your family. I'll take you to court. I laughed. Go ahead, I replied. But you won't like what comes out. Silence. She didn't respond. A week later, I got another text from her, but this time it wasn't anger. It was desperation. I can't do this. I can't pay the bills. Ashley's gone. My friends don't talk to me anymore. Please, can we just pretend it didn't happen? I stared at the message for a long time. I thought about everything, the insults, the manipulation, the way she tried to use Noah against me. I thought about how she never apologized, not really. Just tried to guilt me, control me. There's no going back, I finally replied. You did this. Now you have to figure it out. After that, she seemed to finally understand. Her social media went silent. The dramatic posts disappeared. She unfollowed a bunch of people, even went private. I didn't hear from her for a while. And that was fine by me. Noah and I settled into our new life. It wasn't perfect, he still had his moments of confusion, of sadness. But I was there for him. I made sure he knew he was loved. One evening, as we were watching a movie, he looked at me and asked, "Are you happy, Dad?" I smiled. "Yeah, buddy. I think I am." And for the first time in a long time, I meant it.